Year 2, it's Miss Manders here. So this week we're learning a lot about Mary Seacole, and she was a famous nurse who lived a long time ago. We're learning about her in our history lessons, but also in our English lessons, where we're going to write a report about her at the end of the week. So that we can do a really good job writing our report, we need to have lots of information about her. So I'm going to go through some information now, and that's going to help you both with your English and with your history task for today. Here was Mary Seacole. Mary Seacole was a British Jamaican woman who overcame racial prejudice to help others. Okay, that means that people treated her differently because of the colour of her skin. She is most famous for travelling to the Crimea in 1855 to help care for British soldiers wounded in the war. The soldiers even called her Mother Seacole. Mary Seacole was born as Mary Grant in 1805 in Kingston, Jamaica. Okay, and she was born as Mary Grant because sometimes when ladies get married, they change their name. And before she got married, she was called Mary Grant. Her father was a Scottish soldier and her mother was a Jamaican doctress. A doctress is a healer who used African and Caribbean herbal remedies. Mary learned nursing skills from her mother, who ran a boarding house for injured soldiers. And over here, we've got a picture on this slide of a pestle and mortar. Okay, and that is something that is used for grinding herbs and spices. Mums and dads might have them at home. I want you to remember what that looks like because we're going to talk about one a little bit later in this presentation. So the life of Mary Seacole. In those days, there was a lot of racial prejudice. This means that people were treated differently and were not allowed to do certain things because of the colour of their skin. And we know that that's still a problem now, that's not something that's completely gone away, but things are a bit better now than they were. Mary was well educated and she was well travelled. On November 10th, 1836, Mary married Edwin Horatio Hamilton Seacole, godson of Lord Admiral Nelson in Kingston, but sadly he died only 8 years later. The Crimean War. In 1853, the Crimean War began. Mary wanted to help the soldiers. She travelled to London to visit the War Office, and she wanted to help with the work that Florence Nightingale had started. Although Mary had very good references, her offer of help was turned down, and this was because she was black. Okay, so when we say very good references, what we mean is that there were lots of people who were saying lots of very good things about her. Everybody said that she was very good at what she did and that she was a very good healer, but people didn't really listen to them and they treated her differently because of the different colour of her skin, which obviously is really wrong and really unkind. Mary decided that she would pay for herself to get to the Crimea anyway. So she set up her own hospital 2 miles away from the fighting when she got there. She called her hospital the British Hotel. Mary cared for and treated the injured soldiers with her herbal remedies. She even travelled to where the fighting was and treated them while under fire. So she was a really, really brave and a really determined woman. Okay, she was told she couldn't do something. She was told that they wouldn't let her go, so she found a way to get there herself anyway. And then while she was there, she even treated people and helped them while she was being shot at herself. Okay, so really brave, really determined woman. After the war, Mary returned to Britain. She had no home and she was in bad health. The British people heard of Mary's good work. They wanted to help her. They held a fundraiser to raise money, where she was awarded medals. In 1857, a book was published about her life. The Wonder Adventures of Mrs. Seacole in Many Lands was an autobiography, and it was the first by a black woman in Britain. So she's the first woman to write an autobiography about herself who was also black. Okay, so it's a really important historical event. An autobiography is a book that a person writes about themselves. Okay, so if I was going to write one about myself, it would be all about me. After the war, she died on May 14th, 1881, at the age of 76 in her home in London. Okay, that's a really old age for those days. People tended not to live as long as they do now. After her death, Mary and her work were unfortunately forgotten. But about 100 years later, a group of Jamaican nurses wanted to know more about her, and they started to make her famous again and spread her story so that lots of people could learn about her and know about her, just like we're doing now. So we've mentioned herbal remedies, and this is what they are. Okay, so Mary Seacole mixed plants together to make herbal medicine to help the wounded soldiers, as other medicines were not easily available. You couldn't just pop to Boots and pick up something to help with your cough in those days because it didn't exist. Okay, so it was very different. So she had to make her own medicines using lots of different ingredients. These are some of the ingredients that she used in her medicines. So she used lemongrass, which was boiled to help a fever. She used aloe vera, which she mixed to help heal cuts and wounds. We still use that now. Quite a lot of the hand gels that we use now have got aloe vera in to help soothe our hands. She used ginger, which she ground up to help with upset stomachs. She used lemons to help with coughs. A lot of cough medicines do still have lemon juice in. And she used okra, which she chopped up to heal boils. She would grind her ingredients with a pestle and mortar, mix them in a mixing bowl, or place them in a pan over a fire. Okay, so we looked at a picture of a pestle and mortar earlier, and I bet some of your mums and dads have got them at home too, and that they probably use them when they're preparing dinner and crushing up some spices ready for dinner. In some countries, remedies like this are still used today. So your task today for your history lesson, you need to get your purple book, you need to write the date and the learning objective, which is LO, to research the life of a significant individual, Mary Seacole. Write the word history at the top of your page so that when someone looks through your book at a later point, they'll know that it's your history work that they're looking at. Then you need to read the comprehension and answer the questions. After that, if you feel like you'd like to do a bit more work, you can make some notes about the things that you find interesting about Mary Seacole. You need to use full sentences with correct punctuation to do that. Okay? So for example, something I find really interesting about Mary Seacole is that she was the first Black woman in England to write her own autobiography. I think that's a really important historical fact. So if I was going to make myself some notes, I would include that in my notes. Okay? So have a think, which things do you think are really important? Which things would you like to really remember? And write those down. Okay? See you next week. Bye bye, year 2.